In the quiet town of Birmingham, Alabama, a woman named Mery Beard led a life that seemed ordinary to those around her. She was known for her intelligence and charm, qualities that endeared her to many. However, beneath this facade lay a complex web of relationships and choices that would eventually lead to a series of events shocking the community. Before we begin this gripping story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when we uncover more true crime mysteries. We'd also love to hear your thoughts on this case. Share your theories in the comments as you watch. Let's get into it. Mery K's journey began with a marriage to a man she met on a blind date. Unbeknownst to her, he was deeply involved in criminal activities, including bank robberies and safecracking. Drawn into his world, Mery K became an accomplice, learning the intricacies of the criminal underworld. Her involvement escalated, and she became a notorious figure, earning a place on the FBI's most wanted list by the age of 27. During this tumultuous period, Mery K's personal life was equally complicated. She found herself entangled in relationships that were both intense and fraught with tension. These connections, marked by passion and betrayal, created a volatile environment that mirrored the chaos of her criminal endeavors. The turning point came when Mery K was arrested and sentenced to prison. It was within the confines of her cell that she began to reflect on her life choices. The isolation provided a space for introspection, leading her to confront the consequences of her actions and the relationships that had influenced her path. In prison, Mery K experienced a profound transformation. She embraced faith and sought redemption, dedicating herself to positive change. This newfound purpose led her to establish Angel Tree, a program aimed at supporting the children of incarcerated parents, ensuring they received gifts and messages of love during the holiday season. Mery K. Beard's story is a testament to the complexities of human relationships and the capacity for change. Her life, marked by a descent into crime and a subsequent journey toward redemption, offers a compelling narrative of transformation and hope. Mery K. Beard was born on January 22, 1945 in Springfield, Missouri, into a large family as the fifth of 9 children. Her upbringing was marked by a dichotomy: a devout Christian mother who instilled values of faith and morality, and an alcoholic, abusive father whose actions cast a shadow over her formative years. Despite these challenges, Mery K. exhibited remarkable intelligence and determination. She graduated at the top of her class from Eldon High School at the age of 15 and swiftly completed nursing school, embarking on a promising career in healthcare. In her early 20s, Mery K's life took a dramatic turn when she met Paul Mahaffey, a charismatic music promoter and gambler. Their whirlwind romance led to marriage, but it wasn't long before Mery K discovered Paul's clandestine life as a bank robber and expert safecracker. Drawn into his world, she became his accomplice, learning the intricacies of criminal activities and participating in a series of bank heists across multiple states. During this period, Mery K encountered another individual who would become a significant figure in her life: Don Beard. Don was a fellow criminal, known for his involvement in various illegal enterprises. Their paths crossed in the criminal underworld, leading to a complex relationship that intertwined personal and professional dynamics. The interactions between Mery K, Paul, and Don created a volatile triangle, fueled by shared illicit activities and underlying tensions. Mery K's motivations during this time were multifaceted. The allure of excitement, the influence of her partners, and perhaps a desire to rebel against her troubled past all played roles in her descent into crime. Paul's charm and criminal expertise captivated her, while Don's presence added another layer of complexity to her already tumultuous life. Understanding these relationships is crucial to comprehending the events that unfolded. The convergence of Mery K's troubled upbringing, her entanglement with Paul and Don, and the high-stakes world of crime set the stage for a series of actions that would lead to her eventual downfall and subsequent redemption. On a chilly November evening in 1972, the streets of Birmingham, Alabama, lay under a thick blanket of fog, muffling the city's usual hum. In a modest apartment on the outskirts of town, Mery K. Beard sat alone, her mind racing with the weight of recent events. Her life had become a whirlwind of criminal activities, and the walls seemed to be closing in. Earlier that day, Mery K. had met with her accomplice and husband Paul, a seasoned safecracker who had introduced her to the world of crime. Their relationship had grown strained. Trust was eroding under the pressure of their illicit endeavors. Paul had become increasingly paranoid, suspecting betrayal at every turn. Their conversation was terse, filled with unspoken accusations and lingering doubts. As the night grew darker, tensions reached a breaking point. Mery K. received a call from an associate, informing her of a lucrative opportunity, a bank with a vulnerable vault. Despite her reservations, the lure of one last score was too tempting to resist. She agreed to meet at a secluded location to discuss the plan. Arriving at the rendezvous point, an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts, Mery K. was greeted by the cold stares of her partners. The atmosphere was thick with suspicion. Unbeknownst to her, Paul had confided in another associate, expressing his fears that Mery K. might be planning to turn them in to the authorities. The seed of doubt had been sown, and now it threatened to unravel their operation. The discussion quickly escalated into a heated argument. Accusations flew, and alliances shifted. In the midst of the chaos, a gunshot rang out, echoing through the empty warehouse. Mery K. stood frozen, her heart pounding. Paul lay on the ground, clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. Panic ensued. The others fled, leaving Mery K. alone with the man who had been her partner in both life and crime. Desperation took over. Mery K. knew that calling for help would mean arrest, but leaving Paul to die was unthinkable. She managed to get him to a nearby hospital, concocting a story about a robbery gone wrong. The authorities were skeptical, and it wasn't long before inconsistencies in her tale led to further questioning. As dawn broke, Mery K. found herself in police custody, the weight of her choices bearing down on her. The crime scene at the warehouse was littered with evidence. A discarded weapon, traces of blood, and a set of footprints leading into the darkness. Among the debris, investigators discovered a torn piece of paper with a list of names and numbers, hinting at a network far more extensive than they had anticipated. The discovery of this list raised more questions than answers. Who were these individuals, and what role did they play in Mery K.'s criminal activities? The authorities were left to unravel the tangled web of deceit, betrayal, and crime that had led to this fateful night. As Mery K. sat in her cell, the reality of her situation began to sink in. The life she had built on lies and theft was crumbling, and the path ahead was uncertain. The events of that night would set in motion a series of revelations, each more shocking than the last, as the true extent of her actions came to light. The torn piece of paper, now in the hands of investigators, was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Its contents hinted at a larger conspiracy, one that would challenge the very foundations of the city's criminal underworld. The stage was set for a dramatic unraveling, as secrets long buried threatened to emerge, casting shadows over all involved. In the early hours of June 1972, Birmingham's tranquility was shattered by a series of high-profile bank robberies. The perpetrators, known for their precision and elusiveness, left minimal evidence, confounding local law enforcement. The crime scenes were meticulously executed, with vaults emptied and alarms circumvented, suggesting the involvement of individuals with intimate knowledge of security systems. Investigators, led by seasoned detective John Harris, faced a labyrinth of challenges. The lack of physical evidence and eyewitness accounts made it difficult to establish a clear suspect profile. Early theories ranged from an out-of-town gang to insiders familiar with the bank's operations. The complexity of the crimes indicated a level of sophistication uncommon in the area, leading some to speculate about connections to organized crime. As the investigation progressed, attention turned to Mery K. Beard and her husband, both of whom had prior records and were known associates of the criminal underworld. Their sudden influx of wealth and erratic behavior raised suspicions. However, alibis and a lack of direct evidence initially kept them out of custody. The case seemed to be at a standstill, with each lead leading to a dead end. The turning point came when an anonymous tip led authorities to a storage unit rented under an alias linked to Mery K. Inside, they discovered stolen goods and equipment matching those used in the bank heists. This breakthrough provided the necessary evidence to secure warrants for the Beards' arrest. The discovery of the storage unit not only implicated them in the robberies, but also suggested a broader network of criminal activities, highlighted the challenges law enforcement faced in unraveling the complex web of deceit. The anonymous tip proved to be the key that unlocked the case, leading to the eventual apprehension and conviction of Mery K and her associates. The case served as a stark reminder of the hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface of seemingly peaceful communities. As investigators dug deeper, piecing together fragments of evidence from Mery K. Beard's life, a new and chilling discovery emerged. Hidden beneath layers of mundane belongings in her modest home, detectives uncovered an old leather-bound notebook. Its worn pages held details far more revealing than anyone had anticipated. Here, Mery K. had documented private moments, cryptic reflections, and names, each entry revealing deeper connections within her circle that hadn't been visible on the surface. One particular entry stood out, a carefully written passage recounting a clandestine meeting in the back room of a Birmingham tavern. The description of the conversation hinted at more than just friendly gatherings. It pointed toward motives and plans kept from the public eye. Reading through these entries was like pulling back a curtain, exposing intentions that cast shadows over the relationships in her life, drawing previously overlooked people into the investigation. For detectives, this was the break they had been waiting for. With these new clues in hand, they had the chance to retrace her connections, explore concealed motives, and understand the true nature of her relationships. But with each revelation, the case grew more complex, raising one critical question. What would you do if you were the detective on this case? Would you confront Mery K., hoping for a confession? Or would you continue the investigation, knowing that every choice could bring you closer to the truth, or further into a web of deception? The investigation into Mery K. Beard's love triangle grew increasingly convoluted as detectives began questioning everyone involved. The intricate nature of the relationships in her life meant each person had a story to tell, a story that didn't always align with the others. First, there was Jim, the man who once held Mery K.'s trust. His alibi seemed solid at first, but under pressure, he began to falter, his story changing in subtle ways. The detectives noticed the shift and pressed him further. His eyes darted nervously as he tried to recall his whereabouts on critical nights, and an uncomfortable silence fell over the room each time his timeline was scrutinized. The questioning left the investigators with one nagging suspicion. Was Jim hiding something, or simply caught in the tension of his own deception? Then came Linda, a woman with an undeniable connection to Mery K. Linda's initial statements painted her as an innocent bystander, but under cross-examination, inconsistencies in her story began to surface. Her calm demeanor cracked as she was asked to recall specific details. In a moment of frustration, she muttered something under her breath that only deepened the detective's curiosity, a subtle admission that hinted she knew far more than she was letting on. As detectives switched between Jim and Linda, the investigation hit another roadblock. The alibis seemed airtight when viewed independently, but they didn't quite line up when overlapped. Each questioning session brought new layers of doubt. One day, Linda didn't show up for a scheduled follow-up. Her absence threw the investigation into turmoil. Was it an act of defiance? Or was she on the run? The uncertainty left detectives with more questions than answers. Just when it seemed the case was at a standstill, a third figure emerged. An anonymous source tipped off detectives to a new name, someone they hadn't yet considered, but who was deeply embedded in the circle surrounding Mery K. This revelation dropped like a bombshell, and detectives were left wondering how many more secrets lay hidden in plain sight. Each setback in the investigation brought them closer to an undeniable truth. Love triangles are often built on passion, jealousy, and a dangerous blend of trust and betrayal. Statistically, such cases often end in heartbreak and, at times, violence. As the web of stories continued to unravel, the detectives found themselves asking, how much of this was driven by love and how much by a need for control? The case was becoming an unpredictable labyrinth, with every new revelation drawing the viewer in further. After weeks of frustration, the investigation into Mery K. Beard's tangled relationships took a dramatic turn. Late one evening, an officer revisiting Mery K's belongings came across an overlooked piece of evidence, a single, crumpled photograph tucked away in an envelope. This photo, faded and worn, depicted Mery K with both Jim and Linda, seemingly relaxed and carefree. But as the officer examined it closely, he noticed something startling. A timestamp on the back, placing the trio together on a night when Linda had previously claimed she wasn't with them. This small oversight cracked Linda's alibi wide open, hinting at deeper layers of deception. Detectives, now reinvigorated, brought Linda back in for questioning. This time, their line of inquiry was sharper, more direct. As the questions piled up, Linda's confident composure began to crumble. In a moment of overwhelming pressure, she let slip a crucial detail: an argument she had witnessed between Mery K and Jim on that very night. Linda had kept silent to avoid implicating herself, but the truth was unraveling faster than she could control it. Meanwhile, another shocking development surfaced. A witness, previously hesitant to come forward, finally approached investigators with a story that would shift everything. This witness had overheard a heated conversation between Jim and an unidentified man, discussing a plan involving Mery K. According to the witness, Jim had spoken in hushed tones, yet certain phrases stood out, words like deception and no going back. Now, armed with both Linda's fractured testimony and the new witness account, detectives sensed they were on the cusp of uncovering the real motive and connections driving Mery K's story. The investigation's turning point came when Jim was confronted with these revelations. As detectives laid out the photo, Linda's partial confession, and the witness testimony, Jim's face tightened, his confidence slipping for the first time. As the tension reached a crescendo, the scene cut to a close-up of Jim's clenched jaw and shifting gaze, the silence heavy with anticipation. Then, in a low, almost defeated tone, he muttered, "There's more you don't know." The screen fades, leaving viewers with a single question: what secret was Jim hiding, and how deep did the betrayal go? In the dimly lit interrogation room, Mery K. Beard sat across from detectives, her face calm but her hands betraying a slight tremor. They laid the photograph on the table, then the witness statement, and finally, Linda's partial confession. Each piece of evidence landed with a quiet, forceful thud, and the weight of it seemed to settle heavily on Mery K. Her gaze remained fixed on the table, and for a long moment, she didn't say a word. The lead investigator leaned in, his tone measured yet relentless. "Mery K, the lies are unraveling, and it's time for the truth. You can end this here, but it's up to you." She raised her eyes, meeting his gaze, a flicker of something. Fear, perhaps, or regret, dancing across her expression. She took a shaky breath, her fingers tracing the edge of the photograph, as if trying to hold on to the remnants of her former life. As the silence thickened, the detective continued, recounting the chain of events, each detail like a bead in an unbroken string. Her calm exterior began to fray, and her hands clenched tightly as the words pressed in on her. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. But then, almost as quickly as she'd shown vulnerability, her defenses reassembled. She sat up straighter, a cold resolve returning to her eyes. "I did what I had to do," she finally stated, her voice steadier. "They would never understand." Her defiance startled the detectives, who had expected either a full confession or at least a sign of remorse. Instead, Mery K's words were laced with a dark acceptance. as if she had made her peace with the decisions that had brought her to this room. One detective leaned back, unable to mask his shock. "Mary Kay, do you even regret what happened? Do you understand what this has cost?" A slight, almost imperceptible smirk crossed her lips as she replied, "Regret? Only that it didn't work out the way I planned." Her words hung in the air, chilling the room and leaving the detectives at a loss. The screen fades as her haunting last words echo, hinting at a sentencing phase to come. But questions linger. Was this all just a game to her, or was there a deeper, more complex truth still hidden within her? The courtroom was packed to capacity, a quiet tension filling the space as Mery K. Beard entered, flanked by her attorneys. Spectators, journalists, and curious onlookers lined the benches, all eager for the conclusion of a case that had captured the public's imagination. The judge, with a solemn gaze, surveyed the room before addressing Mery Kay, whose expression remained as unreadable as it had been throughout the investigation. During the trial, the prosecution presented their evidence meticulously. The photograph, the witness testimony, and Linda's partial confession. Piece by piece, they outlined Mery Kay's role in the complex plot that had led to a tangled mess of betrayal, secrecy, and ultimately, a path to prison. Mery Kay's defense attempted to frame her actions as the product of emotional manipulation, arguing that she had been swept into the situation by forces beyond her control. Yet her lack of remorse, and the chilling indifference she displayed, made it difficult for the jury to empathize with her. After days of testimony, closing arguments, and tense deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty on multiple counts. The judge, recognizing the gravity of the crime, sentenced Mery Kay to a lengthy prison term, a decision that resonated heavily throughout the courtroom. There would be no plea deals, no chance for reduced time. The full weight of the law was brought down on her. The public reaction was swift and vocal. Local news channels aired segments on the case, dissecting every detail, and interviewing community members who had once known Mery Kay as a charming, even generous figure. The narrative of a small-town woman gone wrong became a topic of nationwide discussion, with some arguing that her sentence was just, while others debated the impact of her troubled relationships and past. Headlines called her the woman who showed no remorse, and images of her stone-faced in the courtroom circulated widely, painting a picture of a woman unmoved by her fate. In Birmingham, the townspeople grappled with mixed emotions. Some were relieved that justice had been served, while others remained haunted by the lingering questions her case raised about loyalty, trust, and the hidden lives of those around them. The case left an indelible mark, a reminder of how the seemingly ordinary can, under the surface, conceal shadows that change everything. As Mery Kay was led away in handcuffs, there was a palpable sense of closure. Justice had been served, but the story of Mery K. Beard would remain in the public consciousness, a tale that blurred the lines between love, deception, and the unrelenting consequences of betrayal. As the story of Mery K. Beard draws to a close, we're left with haunting questions. How could someone be driven to such extremes over love, ambition, and deception? What lines would you cross, if any, for the people you trust or believe you love? And ultimately, was it worth it? Mery Kay's tale reminds us that the choices we make, the secrets we keep, and the betrayals we endure or inflict all leave indelible marks, often in ways we may never anticipate. Her story is one of many, a testament to the dark paths that complex relationships can sometimes lead us down. What do you think happened behind the scenes in this case? Could there be more to the story, hidden in the cracks that even the investigators didn't find? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Was Mery Kay simply a victim of circumstance, or were her actions deliberate and calculated? If this story captivated you, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. We release new true crime episodes regularly, exploring the shadows of the human psyche and the unforgettable cases that live on in our minds. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a story.